Hello, everyone. I'm going to just give about 5 or 10 minutes. I think 5:30 might have been a little early for people, and I apologize. In hindsight, I probably should have pushed it back till 6, but we are live streaming as well. I'm going to wait about 5 more minutes, so people that are live streaming and everyone coming in 5 minutes, I'll get started. In the meantime, there's 3 handouts on the back, and if you'd like to speak tonight, just come up and sign the clipboard with your name and your address. If you don't want to speak, that's fine. I am going to leave time at the end for us just to have an open conversation. So if you don't have a specific question, just some clarifying thoughts after I talk, then you'll have an opportunity then at that point as well. So I'm going to give us about 5 minutes, and then I'll get started into the format for this evening, where we stand, how we got to this point, and moving forward. And I'm Michael Yaman, Superintendent of Schools. If you didn't know, with me right now is Robert Hiscock, Assistant Chair of Region 16 Board of Ed. I'll introduce the administrators later. And of course, Elio Gugliotti from the Citizen News. Is Nazi coming?
I thought you might.
Did you get the emails today sent out? Good, so you read everything. Pretty clear? I even gave copies.
Exactly what I expected.
And I gave copies of everything so people can say where it came from.
Mhm.
I gave copies of everything so they could see where it came from, you know.
Okay.
I know Priscilla Credell is coming, the Board of Ed Chair. She'll be here as well tonight. I'm going to ask Michelle to come up. Why don't you join us up here, and Tony as well, because they were involved in some of the paperwork. Tony, why don't you come sit over here? Priscilla will come. If another board member comes, we'll just get him a chair. I'm good. We'll grab a chair for him.
Here comes Nancy.
You know what, Tom, pull up a white chair from the back. Okay, well, Nazi, sit there, and then you pull up a chair next to him. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody else.
I don't know. Hey, Naz. Just sit next to Tony, because Priscilla's coming. I don't know if anyone else is coming from the Board of Ed. Okay, we're going to get started. So first of all, I'd like to thank the people that are here this evening, and I'd also like to thank the people that are signed in. I know we have over 20 people signed in online, which I thought we would. So it's a nice way for people that are here what's taking place. Before I get started, I'm going to introduce Tony DeLeon. He's our school business officer who's been very involved with our opening plan and some of our ESSER funding. Nazir Nijay, who's Board of Ed, Robert Hiscock, Assistant Chair for the Board of Ed, and Michelle Rayner, our Director of Curriculum. So I'm going to go through the format. It's going to be a very casual atmosphere tonight. I'm going to speak for about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to speak to the handouts. I'm going to speak about our opening plan. I'm going to speak about the policies that have taken place that have gotten us here tonight. And of course, this started 18 months ago. And then it started again over the summer with vaccines and where we are today. And there still is some indecisiveness, but I'll tell you about that as we move forward. We also have a sign-in sheet, so if anyone wants to ask any specific questions, please come up, sign your name, and put your address down. It's really just for our records because it is a public meeting. If you don't want to ask a question, that's fine, because at the end, I'm hoping to have just a nice casual conversation, kind of a round table. If you have some questions, some clarification, just some points you want to make, I'm really happy to have that. I know it goes without saying, but I'd just like to say it. I just expect us all to be respectful, polite, and courteous of each other, There's gonna be plenty of time to talk. If we need to stay till whatever, until everyone can speak, that's fine. I put 5:30 to 7, but as long as you wanna speak, we're here to listen. Don't speak over anyone else. We'll take our time. I'll just call on you as we move forward. If the question is more appropriate for someone else, I'll have them ask. We're fortunate to have Dr. McGean, our principal of Prospect Elementary. She's in back. You want to just wave, Rima? And we have Derek Muhiram, who's the principal of Long River Middle School. So if there's a question specific to them, you can ask it. We're also fortunate to have Matt Brennan, our Director of Technology, who I'm sure people have emailed or contacted of some technology questions or computer questions about what's going to take place. Please feel free to ask, and I'll even ask them to jump in. All right. So without further ado, I'll move forward. There's 3 handouts in back. One is a handout as a result of an email that we received on August 7th. I sent correspondence out with our opening plan where we were going to be optional with masks. At this point, however, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we received an email from the state, and I was also on a conference call today. As of today, the governor extended an executive order that all public and non-public schools in the state of Connecticut will come to school with masks. So that decision has been removed from us. That will go till September 30th. If the governor's executive orders are not extended, then that executive order will end. Okay, but I want to bring you back to the fact that there's 2 things at play here, which I think a lot of people don't really understand. There's the CSDE, which is the Connecticut State Department of Education. They give us recommendations and requirements that we have to follow. Some of their requirements last year were 3 feet apart. Requirements were masks in school. Requirements were cohorts. That's why we eliminated Italian, because we couldn't take kids out of Italian and Spanish class, because then we'd be mixing our cohorts. That was an example of that. Those were requirements. Some of the recommendations from the state were stay 6 feet apart. Some of the recommendations from the state were have hybrid models where half the kids were in, and they recommended certain schedules, but those weren't requirements. So we stayed 3 feet apart. We couldn't stay 6 feet apart, or we would have less than half of our population in school. And we believe, as a Board of Ed and as a superintendent of schools, that kids learn best in school. So we worked really hard last year, and I don't know what the opinions of people in front of me are or people online, but as Region 16, we worked very hard with our administrators, our teachers, and our non-certified staff to be in person as much as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job with that if you look at what the other towns did. And we're still committed to in-person learning. So that's kind of the history. Those are the things at play. Right now, the Connecticut State Department of Ed are having bi-weekly meetings with superintendents about recommendations and requirements. Today was a meeting where we had an early morning meeting and where they clarified that masks are going to be in school for all schools until September 30th. So that means all students have to come to school with masks, indoor. Outdoor, they do not have to wear masks, okay? Extracurricular activities outdoors, whether it's clubs and groups or sports teams, they do not have to wear masks. In-school activities like student council, basketball, film club, in the building, they wear masks. If they're outside under the tent, they don't need to wear masks. Now, I'm not going to be able to stand here and justify why, if I'm sitting next to Mr. Hiscock tonight, here, and I'm inside and I'm sitting next to him outside, there's a difference. I don't have that answer. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a part of that. But that's required, okay? They have recommended that as much distancing as we can hold, we will in Region 16. And as much outside activity that you can, we will. But we believe in that anyway. If kids can be outside, we think it's healthy. But we're going to follow the requirements, not the recommendations. Recommendations are going to be decisions we make as a Board of Education and as a community. We're going to make our decisions based on what's best for kids, what the community wants, and what the Board of Ed puts forward for policy. They're going to create the policy after we find out what we're required to do. And then myself and my administrative team will put the procedure in place to do that. So if you look at your first handout, these are the new updates as of this weekend and today. I will update our reopening plan. The other thing is all individuals who are 12 and older in Connecticut are now eligible for the vaccine, as you know. All people are to wear face coverings when on the school bus as well. So if you're on the bus, you have to wear a mask. If vaccinated, you do not need to quarantine for school or work if you're exposed. So if you're sitting next to someone in school with a mask on and you're vaccinated, you don't need to be quarantined when we do our contact tracing. We are required to do contact tracing. It's gonna be very hard for us to do that, though, because we don't know what's going on in the community, other than we're probably one of the few places that are gonna be wearing masks, and they're gonna have some type of social distancing. So that's gonna be a little challenging for us. Outdoor activities, sports and clubs, as I said, you will not have to wear masks. Indoor activities, you do. However, we are going to look for the roster of all the students on teams. And if the entire team is vaccinated, we'll have the administrators and the nurses talk about it, and we will let them practice without a mask. But if there's one or two students that aren't, they'll then have to wear a mask. So that's how decisions are gonna be made. We're also gonna ask who's vaccinated and who's not, because it'll help us when we have to do contact tracing, or when we have to let the community know if someone is vaccinated or not vaccinated. We're also gonna make reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. We don't want kids not to be allowed into school, because you might have some students who are gonna have challenges wearing masks. So we'll make accommodations, whether it's a shield, or maybe it's a 6-foot social distancing, but that's what's gonna take place for us in the region. And that's in alignment with the governor's executive orders. So that's where we were, and that's how we got there. I met with the school nurses today. We're on the same page. We talked about the emails going out. They're comfortable with what's required of Region 16 and all public schools. I met with the Board of Ed. I've been speaking to them, sending them emails. I met with the Region 16 union, the presidents of the teachers union. I think everybody's comfortable with where we are right now. Now, as I said before, this decision was taken out of our hands. Okay, it's now an executive order that all kids will start until September 30th. The other two handouts, one's the executive order, and the other is the conversations about what to know with the DPH, which is the Department of Public Health in Connecticut. They're kind of aligned to the CDC, which is the federal government's arm of the health. So that's kind of where we are with everything. We are starting school on August 30th. We did bring in all our small tables in the classroom, because from an instructional stance, we believe in small learning, and we want to get back to where our teachers are taking 2 or 3 kids at the back of the classroom and working on some of the skills that we're worried about. We're going to try not to get back into that where kids don't have that personal relationship with staff. So we are bringing back our smaller tables in the classrooms, and with the kids on mask, we're to break them into small group instruction. We don't want our kids to fall behind any further, and we really believe in in-person learning, so that's kind of where we are. I don't know if the board, Priscilla or Bob, have anything to say?
No, my only concern is there's a lot of give and take in the public right now about the masks, and what do we feel about that and so forth. And I keep coming back to the point of, as board members, we're elected to look out for the best interest of staff, students, and the taxpayers, and what happens. And our hands are frequently tied by state bureaucracy. Personally, I have my personal feelings about masks. I'm an educator for 38 years. I would love to see the kids back in school without masks. As a responsible elected public official, I have to follow what the state guidelines are telling us to do and what the CDC is telling us to do. We can't put students in jeopardy or taxpayers in jeopardy of a lawsuit or anything like that if we went the other way. It's unfortunate that the decision is totally out of our hands at this point. I can guarantee you that the board will review this monthly. I'm sure Priscilla will have it on our agenda to look at each and every month as we move forward after September 30th, and whatever the state does after that, we'll take a look at.
Bob, can I interrupt? I just want to make sure that it's communicated clearly.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not we're going to get sued.
Right.
I really don't even want to go there. So let me just clarify that, please. We have to do, this is an executive order. If we don't open with masks, we will be closed down by the health district, Chesbrough, Cotton Prospect, and Naugatuck Valley and Beacon Falls. It's not about being sued, and it's not about money. So I don't want this conversation respectfully to go in any other route. We have no choice at this point. This Board of Ed was very clear at our last meeting that if we could be optional, we would. Right now, the orders came out, I emailed it, it's in front, it's no longer optional. So until September 30th, if they don't extend the executive orders, then it becomes a decision we can make. Now, I think we've been pretty reasonable in trying to move through it, so that's why I hope everybody heard that. At this point, we have 2 questions, so I want to go to questions, then I will keep it open so we can clarify, I have no problem. Nicole Gasperi of 11 Melissa Lane. Nicole, do you want to stand and ask a question if you have one? Go ahead.
I guess my question is just,
Yeah.
whereas, the survey that you guys put
Yep.
out in the spring, it was pretty clear that staff and parents were I think, over 70% did not want masks in school. So, and I think it's pretty clear where you guys stand as well, but my question is, as parents, what do we do?
Okay, if you're a parent, and here's how I'm gonna ask this, and this isn't what Michael Yaman thinks, the superintendent. If you're a parent and you're unhappy with the fact that we have an executive order, then you need to call your legislatures and you need to speak to the Capitol. They're the ones that extended the executive order for the Governor of Lamont. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but he has an executive order. So that decision was taken out of our hands. Our opening plan was we were gonna make it optional. Now, if the Delta variant became significant and people were getting sick, I'm sure this board would revisit that and maybe make it mandatory. But at where we were statistically, in Prospect in the last 10 weeks, there's 9 people that have contracted COVID, and in Beacon Falls, there were 7 in 2 weeks. So I've been keeping the statistics, I go in it every day. If you go on the state website, there's a graph that gives you the numbers. So we keep the statistics so that we can be informed, but that decision is something that is made at the state level, and that's where you'd have to go if you have a disagreement with that. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Okay, well, what,
I feel like a lot of us have done that, and it just doesn't seem like.
then I don't,
At this point, it's like it feels like our rights as parents are getting taken away. And I feel like last year it was like, okay, we're gonna go along to get along and do what we have to do.
Yep.
And come together as a community, and now, like you said, the statistics don't really match the requirements. I know that's not your fault,
Yep.
or maybe even your decision, obviously.
it's not our decision. Now, in Cheshire, which is funny, I think they had 32 positive people in the last 2 weeks, where we only had 9. Maybe our population's smaller. I'm sorry that doesn't I guess it answers your question, it's not the answer you're looking for, but I can't give a different answer. I wish I could.
So what are our options if it's something?
At this point, if you don't want to send your child to school, your option is to homeschool that child. The state did not fund RESCs to do remote learning, and we're not offering remote learning this year. We believe every child needs to be in school. Vivian Matora of 2 Bronson Road. Oh, hi, Vivian. Good.
So my question is, well, one of my questions is, so it's not your decision about masks, but it is your decision to open it on the 30th, correct? Is there a reason we can't hold off to September 30th?
Well,
We can't revisit the calendar, trust me, I just made a calendar for here
Well-
in North Haven, because my other daughter's in North Haven.
well, I mean,
But I can
here's the only thing I could tell you, and Tony just brought it up. You have to meet a 180-day requirement. If we start September 30th, I don't know if we make that requirement, because you have to be done 2 days before June 30th, which is June 28th. I don't think, I mean, listen, no, we could. Yes, we could start September 30th now that there isn't a state calendar anymore, but that would be a board decision. That'd be a decision people would have to make. I think starting 30 days later would be very challenging for a lot of people. Okay, hold on.
You're just gonna change it, like, what's, exactly, it's not gonna change us.
Well, I think, hold on, though. I think that's a great point. If you move it to the 30th, who's to say on the 30th it opens? So it doesn't make
But
sense.
it just seems like someone,
I think that would make a point.
Okay, hold on, let me stick with that question, though. Go ahead, because I want to get to everyone else, then we can have an open conversation. I really
think that might make a point to the state that we're obviously completely against the masks if we change the date 30 days forward.
I mean,
That we wouldn't, you know.
I mean,
I say take away every vacation, we only have a couple of.
guys, just hold on one second. That's one opinion. Your question was, could you start? Yes, it might be a little challenging. It'd be risky. You could. I don't think I would support it. I don't know if the board would, or if parents would want to do that either, but I think there was a good point that was expressed. Who's to say on the 30th his orders aren't going to be extended either?
But I think we should put it to the parents, I mean, if that's an option.
I'll take it down. I'm not saying we'll do it, but that's why you're here, to give us opinions, and some of them we may move forward with, some we may not. Okay.
And another question
Go ahead.
was, so there is no option. One more question I have is if your kids have a religious exemption, if you pull them out for 30 days and then decide to pull them back in, is that religious exemption still in play?
I don't know an answer to that, Michelle. Is not wearing a mask is not a religious exempt thing, it's the vaccine. If they mandate vaccines and you've already submitted your paperwork, it's good, but as July of next year, there are no longer religious exemptions. They took that away last year in the law, they changed that law.
No, right, I'm saying for the kids who already have them in as of last year.
You're fine for this year?
But if they take them out, if you pull them out, are you fine to put them back in?
Well, there is no religious exemption for not wearing a mask.
No, I'm saying for the vaccination.
Vaccines aren't required. Masks are required.
No, the COVID vaccine is not required. I'm saying for other.
I don't know, I'm having trouble. Can you explain,
So
maybe Michelle?
is the question that you're asking is about vaccines, period?
Period.
Okay, so I do believe, and we'll check this and get this information back to you, but I do believe that people that filed for religious exemption in the past, so that if that is in fact on record with our region, that you're grandfathered in.
Correct, but what's the religious exemption that has to do with COVID, because there is no requirement for the
No,
vaccine?
I'm just saying if I pull them out because of COVID, because I don't want her to wear a mask. and
That's
I-
not a religious exemption.
It's vaccines only.
It's vaccine only, it's not a mask, it's not clothing.
No,
we-
no, but I'm saying if
What
I
she's
pull her
asking-
out, is my religious exemption for other areas?
For the other
Is it right,
vaccines,
does
does
it-
her
Oh, okay,
religious
this is the
exemption
last
hold?
year.
Well, next year.
No, won't be expired.
It would still.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, I apologize.
My understanding of it is the children are grandfathered.
Absolutely, they are grandfathered. So if you,
Grandfathered.
so if you
you're-
take your child out and put them back in, those stay in place.
Yeah.
Just as if you moved to another district and came back to Region 16, I believe they're grandfathered.
Okay.
I think
And
the
then
state
what's-
law did that.
Okay, what is the plan, let's say if the kids refuse to wear the mask?
They're not gonna be allowed in school
Okay. Until, let's say it expires on the 30th.
till the 30th.
On the 30th, they can come back.
But I would be very careful. If your child won't wear a mask, then I think you have to homeschool that child until the mask is lifted, unfortunately. I would advocate against it. We want the child in school, but if they won't wear the mask and they're not an identified child that has a history of not being able to wear it, then we probably should have a conversation, maybe individually. You come on in the office and we could talk about it. I don't think that should be a reason not to come or to pull someone out of school. Just an opinion. Thank you. Mariana Martin, 145 Beacon Hills Commons.
Here,
Hi.
hi. So, I'm just asking for me and a couple other people that I know have a lot of medical problems.
Yep.
So if we feel there's like no other option other than in school.
At this point, there isn't. The state has not put forward anything for remote learning, which they initially said they were considering through like ACES or Ed Advance and Rex. They haven't done that.
But they could change before school starts.
I would be very careful about that. We keep hearing there's gonna be changes, and there hasn't. That's why we've taken the position we need to move forward, at least let people know right now. But there is no remote learning at this point.
Remember, repeat the question, because that's the
Oh,
only
I'm
mic
sorry.
going loud.
I'm sorry.
just reminding you.
Mariana Martin's asked if there's a plan such as remote learning for kids that aren't in school. I said there isn't. Thank you.
This is the live mic for the transmission.
Yeah.
So we have to repeat the question for you. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Because I don't have anyone else signed in. Feel free. If you just say your name and your address, though.
She signed in. Did you-
She signed in. Just went over to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Christy Moore, 11 Stephen Circle. Hi, Christy.
Hi, I just have a question. You keep mentioning that there's no remote learning plan as of now. However, there are options to a hybrid if, cases increase, right? That's always the
Yes.
caveat. And since I don't trust that they're gonna remove the mask mandate, I also don't trust that they're not gonna shut down schools. So if that were the case, and we have a special needs kid that requires in-person learning for physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy that cannot be done via Zoom, what accommodations would happen if that were the case? Because that's not in the reopening hybrid plan.
All right, great question. So Christy's question was, you've had a hybrid plan before, there's no remote learning now. If things get worse and we have to go to a hybrid model, or a remote-only model, what would take place for the, I'd say for any student and for identified students. So we have a plan we could put in place because we were successful last year with it. So if we go to a hybrid model, we would then create a schedule similar to last year, which would be half the student population in and half the student population out, and we'd go remote. For special ed kids, we'd give them their services on the days that we're in school. If we're completely out, then we would have to create a learning plan for each special ed student that we need to get services for, and we'd address that one by one at that point.
And there's no option to, typical peers versus special needs to have them get the accommodations they need.
If there, and Christie's asking if there's a hybrid if there's a hybrid model, they will have typical peers with special ed peers. But if we're completely shut down, there would be no option for that. I really, really don't think we're gonna be shut down. And I don't even think we're gonna be hybrid. I really think we're gonna be in-person learning. I really do. But I do think we're gonna be wearing masks till January and February. If I had to wage a bet on it, I think that's where the state's going. I do not think we're gonna be shut down. Absolutely not. If we are, I'm gonna be shocked. And if we are, we're gonna have the maximum number of kids in school, and we're gonna do as good a job as we did last year. And, you know, I really have to credit the teachers and administrators. Everybody around us shut down. We didn't shut down. We will do that. I'd be shocked if we're shut down completely. If we are, it'd weigh on all of us very heavily. I appreciate the question. Anyone else that didn't sign in? Yes, Marianne?
I just kind of wanted to put it out there, because we did mostly Zoom learning for the last year and a half. The biggest struggle that we had at our house was, having Zoom kids in with classroom kids at the same time, because the classroom kids was very, very loud, and the Zoom kids didn't get their questions answered or any other attention. Is there any way, if you happen to go to hybrid, that you could have one class of Zoom kids where the teacher can focus on the screen and not have to deal with all the personalities of the kids in the classroom?
Marianne's question was, last year, when we did our Google Meets, was challenging for her family, her kids that were remote learners. Sometime were talked over by the kids in the classroom, and she wanted to know if they'd have a separate classroom. The only thing I could say, and I'll have Rim or Dr. McGee jump in on that, I didn't know that was an issue, number one. The problem is we would've had to hire 10 more teachers that we didn't have funding for if we wanted to create separate classes for kids that were home. So if we were to shut down again, it's something we could think about, but I don't know, that wasn't brought to my attention before. Rima, did you hear about that at all, the principal at Prospect Elementary?
No, we didn't receive those complaints. It's certainly challenging to have a classroom of in-person learners in front of you, as well as attending to those on the screen. I would like to give the teachers credit for not just having that screen on, but using the chat option, which
I had to take video, and then they said if the noise was too much, because you had to crank up the volume to be able to hear the teacher, but then you hear all the kids screaming, and they got loud in the middle school.
What I will say to you is, if that happens again, shoot an email to Mr. Muhiram or let us know, and we'll try to figure out a way where your kids can send a chat or a question via email, or if we leave 5 minutes for the end of the period, maybe for kids that were home that had questions that didn't get answered. But now that we know it may be an issue, there might be a way for us to do that, where maybe the teacher has 5 extra minutes at the end of a class for kids that are remote. I'm hoping we're not remote, but if we are, it's something we can think about. So thank you for bringing it up.
and I don't want you to get the impression that we were issue-free. We certainly.
Of course we weren't issue, no.
But
We had a lot of challenges.
brought to our attention and we were able to, amend things that weren't working, like the way that the screen was facing or things of that nature.
And we did change our sound system in the classrooms. Is it a new system now, Matt, that we put in at Prospect Elementary we were trying out last year with the sound?
Well, this year we're doing new boards, but they probably won't be in until October. But yeah, I mean, I know so I'm the IT person, so I got, plenty of calls from, parents when, or popping into a classroom, these kids can't hear me today, things like that. So, I mean, I know we had our challenges with that last year, and I do feel like we got much better as the year went on. You know, but I also recognize that, you know, not being in school is a less than ideal situation, and, you know, there were times where the technology couldn't substitute an in-classroom experience, you know.
Closed caption made it worse.
But we have purchased new boards, and they were supposed to be in June, and we're supposed to install them in our classrooms. They're on back order till October, so we're still waiting on those, and there's a new sound system with them. Hopefully it'll improve. But as Matt said, there's challenges, and we'll look into it if we get to that point, which I hope we do not get to that point. Anyone else that hasn't signed up or that wants to answer a question or just wants to make a comment? This is the time to do it, yes.
Hi,
What's your name and just where you live?
Tracy, 92 Cook Road.
Okay.
What options do parents have with kids with underlying conditions on September 30th if the no mask mandate?
If your children has an underlying health condition, please contact the school nurse or the principal, and we'll create a learning plan, and we'll figure out how we can make that accommodation. If there's a legitimate health issue where they can't be to school without a mask after the 30th, come talk to us. We'll try to figure a plan out for you.
Oh, no, I want all masks to be worn. My daughter has not been to school for the past 18 months.
Yeah, well, what I'm telling you is if the other kids don't have to wear masks and you have a concern, meet with us personally, and that's an issue that we'll try to resolve for you with you and your child. And I don't know what the board's position will be at that time, what the COVID rate is and everything. What I'm telling you is where we are until September 30th, but you'll get weekly updates again as to, you know, what we're being told we have to do and what our recommendations are. If we have to go to surveys, we'll go to surveys. We'll try to take heed to what the community wants and what the Board of Ed thinks is in the best interest of the kids. And that's why we send out surveys. What's your opinion about snow days? What's your opinion about masks? What's your opinion about remote learning? As I said, for some people that weren't here, what we first try to do is get the opinion of the community, and we bring it back to the Board of Education. Any other questions or comments or clarification or something you want from the board or something you want from myself? Priscilla, as chair, do you want to speak or anything you want to say?
I'm just gonna say this. You know, after all these many years of watching through education, the one thing we teach our kids is to follow rules. Whether we like it or not, this is a mandate. And I have a principal that has a very high tolerance, which is 0, for rule following. That her favorite saying is, I am a rule follower, and I teach the kids to be rule followers. So if this is what we're labeled with right now, if this is what the state says we will do, then that's what we will do. It's the best we can do, and then come September 30th, we'll make a new plan. There's no reason why we can't adjust every week like the whole state does. Okay?
Any administrators that are here that'd like to say anything or comments, or Michelle or anyone? I mean, this is open. It's for people to talk about whether we agree or disagree. It's good that you're heard and we hear your opinions. Unfortunately, everything we do is changing. As I said, I sent something out Friday that said it's optional. By Friday afternoon, and today I was told it's not optional anymore. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you coming. And if something comes up later, please contact me later or send an email. I'm available.
I want to ask, while we got a group of parents
Matt, you
here,
could
and-
shut that down, though.
And we're
Thank you.
on for a while. What
I
else,
shut it down.
what else is the concern of